My family skipped my daughter's birthday again. But 5 days later, my mother attempted to withdraw $3,000 from our joint account. I just quietly cut them off from the bills. They reported fraud. The bank called me. I smiled and replied, "It's one thing when people forget your birthday. It's another when they forget your daughter's 2 years in a row after promising they'd come." I'm not talking about coworkers or old friends. I mean my parents and my brother. People who should know better. People who were supposed to love her. I'd been texting them for weeks about the plans. I even sent out invites. Nothing formal, just a sweet graphic I made with cupcakes and balloons, the kind that makes little kids smile. Ava helped me pick the colors. She picked purple. We hung streamers in the kitchen and bought sparkly plates. I rented a bounce house even though I probably shouldn't have spent the money. She was turning 7. That age where everything matters. Where they remember who came, what they got, and whether anyone made them feel special. She wore her glittery birthday dress, the one she'd begged me to buy from the catalog, and she kept glancing at the door waiting for them. My mom, my dad, Jake. They'd said they'd be there by 2. By 4 I knew. No one was coming. The worst part was watching Ava try to hold it together. She didn't cry, not in front of the other kids. But when we blew out the candles and I asked if she wanted to open the gifts, she whispered, "Can we wait a little? Maybe they're just late." They weren't. Later that night she asked if maybe they'd come tomorrow. I said maybe, even though I knew better. Last year they at least dropped by with some dollar store wrapping paper and an old board game that wasn't even age appropriate. This year, nothing. No call. No message. They went to a friend's barbecue. I saw it on Facebook. They were tagged in the photos. Laughing, drinks in hand. Burgers on the grill. Not even a glance at the calendar. I was angry, but more than that I was ashamed. Because I'd been keeping them afloat for years. I pay their utilities every month. Sometimes their phone bill. I've Venmo'd Jake money more times than I can count. He once needed $900 urgently, and I didn't ask why. Just sent it. When my mom got behind on her car insurance, I called the company myself and paid it over the phone. In September alone I spent almost $2,000 on them. And yet they couldn't drive 25 minutes for a little girl's birthday. 5 days later I got a call from the bank. They flagged an unusual transaction. My mom had tried to withdraw $3,000 from the joint account I opened to make things easier for them. That was the final blow. They didn't just miss her birthday, they tried to take more from me like nothing had happened. I told the bank I didn't authorize it. Then I sat on my couch for a long time just staring at the wall. No crying. No yelling. Just quiet. Something in me settled. I'd been too generous for too long. I'd been helping them survive while I was barely holding myself together. I didn't even have a college fund for Ava, and here I was paying for other people's bills like it was my job. That night I closed the joint account, changed every password, canceled the autopays, blocked them from anything tied to my finances. The next morning my mom texted that she couldn't access the electric bill. Asked if there was a glitch. I didn't answer. Jake texted something snarky. Said I was being dramatic. Said I was acting like we missed her graduation or something. I didn't reply. Then came the fraud report. My parents actually called the bank and reported that the account had been hacked. That someone had removed their access illegally. The bank called me to verify my identity and asked if I was aware of the situation. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I was finally done being the one they leaned on. I told the bank it was no fraud. I had simply chosen to take my money back. I thought it would end there. I thought they'd just disappear for a while, lick their wounds, maybe cool off. I was wrong. They weren't going to let go that easily. They still thought they could manipulate me. Still thought I was too soft to cut them off. They hadn't even started the worst of it yet. The silence lasted 3 days. Just long enough for me to wonder if they'd finally gotten the message. Maybe they felt ashamed. Maybe they realized they crossed a line. For a moment I actually believed that. But of course it wasn't over. Not even close. On day 4 the text came in from my dad. Just one line. "Can we talk? Your mother's not feeling well." That was it. No mention of Ava. No apology. Just vague concern, the kind designed to reel me back in. A classic play out of their book. Hit the panic button, dangle guilt, and hope I take the bait. I didn't reply. That evening around 7:30 I got an email. From my mom, which was already strange since she barely knows how to check her inbox, let alone write something on her own. It was long. Too long. For paragraphs of wordy guilt. She talked about how we've always tried our best as a family, how things haven't been easy, how it hurt to be cut out like criminals. Then came the part that made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so delusional. She said they missed Ava's party because they didn't want to show up empty-handed and disappoint her. They didn't even try. They went to a barbecue. I saw it. They were tagged in photos, red Solo cups, burgers, stupid pool floats. Not a trace of guilt in sight. And then she wrote, "We didn't think Ava would even notice. There were other kids there. We figured she'd still have fun." That one line hit me harder than I expected. Ava had noticed. Of course she noticed. She kept checking the door, hoping someone would walk in. She asked me twice if maybe they were on their way. She even set aside a cupcake for Grandpa just in case he comes late. She noticed everything. So I stayed quiet. I didn't respond to the email. I didn't respond when my dad texted again, asking if I could help with a small electric bill issue. And I ignored Jake's voicemail where he said he had something serious to discuss and added, "Don't worry, it's not about money." Which was exactly how I knew it was. Later that day he sent me a photo of a hospital bill. Supposedly for Mom. $1,260. Emergency visit. Said she had chest pains. Claimed she collapsed the day after Ava's party. Said the stress got to her. Said he didn't want to bring it up, but they were behind on medical payments and it was just one of those times when family has to pull together. I sat down and looked at that photo carefully. The address on the bill wasn't even in our city. It was dated August, 2 months before. Not only was it fake, it wasn't even recent. Just something he found and used as a prop. I didn't call him out. I didn't say a word. Instead, I printed it out, circled the date and stuck it in a folder. Something about that message felt like a turning point. They were no longer just careless. They were actively trying to manipulate me. The next day Mom sent a video message. I didn't even open it. Just the preview alone showed her lying in bed, her voice low and hoarse, talking about trying to be strong. I deleted it. Then I went online, changed every security question on every account I'd ever linked to theirs. I was done playing nice. I checked Ava's backpack that Sunday evening. Just a normal routine, making sure there were no crumpled worksheets or candy wrappers. But I found a folded drawing tucked inside one of the pockets. A stick figure of a little girl next to a lopsided birthday cake. 3 people with smiling faces. And one little figure drawn in the corner with no face at all. I asked Ava who it was. She said the smiling people were me, her, and Tyler, our neighbor's son. I asked who the one in the corner was. She shrugged and said, "Nobody came." That stuck with me. They didn't just miss a party. They created a memory my daughter will never forget. And then they had the nerve to fake a medical crisis to keep the money flowing like nothing happened. But something was off. The desperation in Jake's messages didn't feel like family drama anymore. He was sending texts at weird hours. Asking for exact amounts. $500, $800. Always specific, always urgent. He said Mom was sick, then said Dad might need tests too, then casually mentioned he might be in a situation. Situation? I wasn't sure what that meant yet. But I was starting to feel like their lies were covering something bigger. Something deeper than I'd expected. The medical story was just the first layer. I was about to peel the next one back. And it wouldn't be pretty. I didn't even have to dig that deep. The cracks in their story started showing all on their own. A week after the fake hospital bill, Jake sent me a text that was clearly meant for someone else. It said, "Tell them I'll have the money Friday. Don't show up at the house again." He unsent it about 20 seconds later. But not before I screenshotted it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That was all the confirmation I needed. This wasn't about Mom's health or some overdue medical bill. Jake was in trouble. And now I was even more certain he was trying to use me to buy his way out of it. 2 days after that, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail again. He said he'd been doing some thinking, and that maybe we all needed to sit down, talk face to face. No apology. Just a gentle suggestion that I was blowing things out of proportion. Then he dropped in almost casually that Jake was dealing with a lot lately. Said he wasn't himself. No kidding. That night I sat down and listed out every payment I'd made for them in the past year. Rent help. Car repairs. Groceries. A random vet bill for their dog. Over $19,000, not even counting the joint account deposits. All of that while I worked full-time, picked Ava up from aftercare and tried to keep up with everything on my own. Not once had they said thank you. But the tipping point came a few days later. Jake showed up at my door. He didn't even knock. Just rang the bell 3 times fast. I peeked out the window and saw him pacing on the porch. He looked rough, hoodie, shadows under his eyes, chewing a toothpick like he couldn't sit still. I opened the door just enough to step outside and shut it behind me. Ava was inside watching a movie. He got right to it. Said he was in deep. Owed money. Didn't say to who. Kept referring to them as they. Said it wasn't his fault, he was trying something that didn't work out. I asked if it was gambling. He didn't answer. Just rubbed his eyes and said he needed $2,500 fast. Said if he didn't pay them back, they might come around. That was the first time I felt something close to fear. Not for me but for Ava. Because if he had people threatening him and they knew where I lived, I told him I didn't have it. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. Said, "Come on, you always help." That's when I told him I knew about the fake hospital bill. He didn't even deny it. Just said he didn't think I'd check. Then he did something I'll never forget. He pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper and handed it to me. It was a list of numbers, names, amounts, debts. I don't know why he thought that would convince me. It just made it worse. He'd been borrowing from everyone. Friends, a former coworker, even our uncle who lives in Tampa. Jake wasn't just broke. He was spiraling. I told him to leave. He didn't argue. Just said, "Fine," and walked back to his car without looking at me. That night I installed a new deadbolt. Eva asked why. I told her it was just for extra safety. Over the next few days I started getting weird calls. No one on the line. Just silence or a quick hang-up. A couple of them came late, past midnight. I started to wonder if Jake had dragged something worse into our lives than just debt. But then my mom called, crying. She said Jake was having a breakdown. That he wasn't sleeping. That she was scared. She asked if I could just help one last time to get him back on his feet. I told her I wasn't funding his mistakes anymore. He got quiet then cold. Said something like, "You used to be the one we could count on." That's when I realized she wasn't worried about Jake's well-being. She was worried her lifeline was gone. The money. The constant financial safety net I'd become. She thought I'd break eventually. That I'd feel bad and go back to helping. But what they didn't realize was this time, I wasn't waiting for them to hit rock bottom. I was about to drag Jake into the light whether he liked it or not. I didn't sleep much after that night. Something about Jake's visit lingered. Not just the debt, not just the lies. It was the way he looked at me like I was supposed to feel responsible for his mess. Like my refusal to bail him out made me the villain. I went to work like normal the next morning, dropped Ava at school, answered emails. But I couldn't focus. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, the man on the other end didn't introduce himself. He just asked, "You Linda? You know Jake Harper?" I said yes. Then he said, "He's got 3 days." Then he hung up. Took everything in me not to panic. Not because I was scared of some guy calling, but because that was real. That wasn't my family exaggerating. That wasn't guilt tripping. That was something else entirely. I took the rest of the day off and drove to my parents' house. I hadn't seen them in weeks. My mom opened the door, surprised. My dad was in the living room half watching the news. Jake wasn't there. I asked where he was. My mom hesitated, then admitted he'd been staying with a friend. She wouldn't say who. I told them what happened, the phone call. My mom looked stunned, but my dad, he just looked tired. Then he told me something I didn't expect. Jake had taken out a loan from someone months ago. Not a bank. Not a payday place. One of those guys you find through friends of friends. No paperwork. No due dates. Just interest that piles up until you're buried. They hadn't told me because they thought he'd figure it out. Figure it out? With what money? He didn't even have a job. That's when I snapped. I told them everything. That I knew about the fake hospital bill. That I'd been tracking every dollar I'd given them. That I'd been sacrificing for years so they could live in denial. I told them they weren't just irresponsible, they were complicit. They let Jake dig himself into a hole, then stood there holding the shovel. My dad didn't argue. He just got up and walked into the kitchen. My mom asked me to sit down. Said we needed to form a plan. That we had to support each other. I said no. I wasn't here to save Jake. I was here to warn them that if anyone came near my house again, if Ava ever got caught in any part of this, I would file a police report with everything I knew. Her face changed. She wasn't crying anymore. She just looked disappointed. Not in Jake. In me. That night I checked the cameras I'd installed around the house just in case. Then I called Jake. I told him to come over. That I wanted to talk. He said he'd be there in an hour. He showed up right on time. Nervous again, twitchy. I let him in. I told Ava to go upstairs and put on her headphones. Then I laid it all out. I told Jake I wasn't afraid of whoever he owed money to. That I had recordings of every conversation, screenshots of every lie, copies of every fake bill. And that if he ever tried to drag me into his mess again, I'd go straight to the police and give them everything. Then I did something that even surprised me. I handed him a job application. I had a friend who managed a shipping warehouse. They were hiring. It was decent pay, not glamorous, but it was full-time and under the table for now if needed. I told him he had one shot. Take the job. Start paying his own bills. Get out of whatever hole he was in. He stared at the paper like I'd handed him a weapon. I told him I wouldn't give him another dime. Not one. But if he showed up to that job and stuck with it for more than 3 weeks, I'd consider driving him to work until he could afford his own car repair. For once he didn't argue. He just said, "Okay." And then as he turned to leave, he pulled something out of his hoodie pocket and held it out to me. A folded envelope. Inside was a birthday card for Ava. No cash. Just a card. Unopened. Written in pencil. I asked him why he never gave it to her. He shrugged and said, felt stupid showing up late with just that. He left. Ava never saw him that night. She still doesn't know about the call or the threats. I told her Jake was taking some time to figure things out. But part of me knows this isn't over. My family always acts decent when the storm clears. They're good at pretending things are fine. But when it truly matters, birthdays, emergencies, moments that count, they vanish. And if they do it again next year, they won't get a warning. For a few weeks, it actually felt like the storm had passed. Jake kept showing up to the job at the warehouse. My friend said he wasn't great, always 10 minutes late, sometimes disappeared for long breaks, but he was showing up. That alone was a miracle. My parents went quiet. No texts, no surprise visits, no passive-aggressive voicemails. It was the first stretch of real silence I'd had from them in months. And for a second I let myself believe maybe they'd finally understood. Maybe something had clicked. Maybe cutting them off, forcing Jake to stand on his own, finally snapped them out of it. Then one Thursday morning I opened the front door and found it. A folded piece of paper. Wedged between the screen and the frame. My name written in big letters across the front. Inside. Jake's in the hospital. Please call us. No details. No explanation. Not even the name of a hospital. I didn't panic. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew the pattern. This wasn't new. It was just more of the same. A vague crisis. No warning. Just enough information to make me pick up the phone and ask questions. I didn't call. Instead, I drove Ava to school, went home and made myself coffee. Sat down at the kitchen table and thought for a while. Then I texted my friend at the warehouse and asked if Jake had been in the day before. He had. Left a little early but definitely showed up. Didn't mention anything about not coming back. So I waited. A full day. No follow-up message. No call. Just silence. The next morning I drove over to my parents' house before work. Not to start a fight, just to see if the lie would hold when I looked them in the face. My mom answered the door like she hadn't left a fake hospital note on my door 36 hours earlier. She didn't look worried. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said, "Oh, you came by." I asked how Jake was. She blinked like she didn't know what I meant. I reminded her, the note. The hospital. She looked away and said, "Well, we thought he might have to go. He had an episode. Some kind of panic attack." Jake came downstairs 2 minutes later, fully dressed, eating from a bag of chips. I didn't say anything else. I just left. That was the last line. I didn't even feel angry at that point. I just felt disgusted. They couldn't even keep their story straight for 2 days. They were back to testing the fence, shaking it to see if I'd finally open the gate again. I didn't. Instead, I made a decision. That weekend, I went through every email, text, note, bill, and document they'd ever sent me asking for money. I created a folder. Not for revenge, not to press charges, just to have it. Just in case. Then I called my friend at the warehouse. Asked a question I hadn't asked before. Is Jake officially on payroll now or still under the table? He said Jake switched to payroll 2 days ago. That was all I needed. With that confirmation, I reached out to a local nonprofit credit advisor and forwarded Jake's contact information, with his consent form attached. A form he'd signed on his first day at the warehouse, buried among other paperwork I'd helped him print. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to get a call from a debt counselor. If he wanted out of his mess, he'd have to actually work for it now. The next day, Ava got a small package in the mail. No return address. Just her name written in Sharpie. Inside was a cheap charm bracelet. 5 little silver hearts and a pink plastic flower. Not fancy, not expensive, but cute. She smiled when she opened it. Asked if it was from Grandma. I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to lie. But I also didn't want to tell her the truth. That her grandmother had skipped her birthday and then lied about her son being hospitalized to try to get more money from me. So I just said, maybe. That weekend my dad called. First time in a month. Left a voicemail. "Hey, your mom and I were thinking of stopping by with a few things for Ava. Just small stuff. Thought it might be nice." They didn't show up. Instead, on Sunday I got a long message from my mom. She said they felt like I was pushing them out of the family, and that holding on to resentment only poisons relationships. That they were trying to make amends, but I was being cold and distant. And there was. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry I stopped letting them get away with it. They thought because they mailed a cheap bracelet and left one voicemail, everything would reset. That I'd go back to the old way. The bank transfers. The quiet support. The yes. But that part of me is gone. For good. They had a year. 1 year to get it right. 1 year to show up, say sorry, show Ava she mattered. If they missed her birthday again, if they bailed or forgot or made up another lie, I wouldn't block their numbers. I'd block them from our lives. Completely. It was the quiet kind of summer where everything feels like it's holding its breath. No emergencies. No surprise messages. No one asking for money. Jake kept the warehouse job. Just barely. My friend said he wasn't the worst employee but far from dependable. Always late, took too many breaks, sometimes disappeared mid-shift but never quit. That alone felt like progress in a low expectation kind of way. My parents didn't reach out much. A few vague texts. My mom sent a blurry photo of a garden gnome in a shopping cart one day with no caption. A few days later, my dad sent a thumbs-up emoji in response to a picture I posted of Ava at the park. It was like they were trying to keep themselves faintly in the background, just close enough not to be forgotten, but far enough not to be confronted. I left them there. Ava started 2nd grade that fall. Still quiet. Still a little older than she should have to be. She didn't talk about her grandparents much, but I could see it. When other kids mentioned visits from theirs, or when a new girl brought in cookies her grandmother helped her bake, Ava would smile politely but she'd go quiet. When her birthday rolled around again, she asked me a few weeks out if we were inviting them. I said, only if you want to. She paused. Then said, let's just invite the people who always come. So I sent the text. One message. 6 weeks before. Ava's party. Saturday the 12th. 2 o'clock. Our house. My mom responded within the hour. We'll be there this time. Promise. My dad sent a thumbs-up emoji again. Jake said nothing. Ava picked a unicorn theme. She wanted pink and blue balloons, glitter cupcakes, and a sleepover with her 3 closest friends. I let her plan everything. She even wrote a checklist on the fridge with her own little boxes to tick off. The last item said, see who comes. The day arrived. Warm weather, clear skies. I decorated the yard, hung streamers, set out cupcakes with little plastic horns. Ava wore her sparkly dress again, same one from last year. Still fit. Barely. By 2:30 everyone was there, except them. By 3:15, Ava stopped checking the window. By 4 the party was winding down. And at 5 she said quietly, they forgot again. I didn't say anything. Just helped her unwrap gifts and watched her face when she realized none of them were from Grandma, Grandpa, or Jake. Not even a card. Not even a text. Later that night I got curious. I checked Facebook. There they were. My parents and Jake. At a barbecue. This time in some cousin's backyard. Holding plastic cups, smiling for selfies, laughing with people they barely see the rest of the year. They had driven over an hour to get there. They couldn't drive 20 minutes for Ava. I didn't get angry. Just tired. The kind of tired you feel when you've seen something too many times to be shocked anymore. Ava didn't cry this year. She just put on her new pajamas, climbed into bed and said, maybe we just stop inviting them now. I nodded. That's your choice. The next morning I called my mom. No answer. I sent a message instead. We're done. You missed her birthday again. This time without even pretending to try. You don't get to be part of her life on your terms. This was the last chance. We're moving on. I blocked her. Then I blocked my dad. Then Jake. Jake tried calling that evening. Left a message, slurring his words a little. You really cut us off? Over what? A missed party. You're making it bigger than it is. Ava'll forget. Life happens, Linda. You're being cold. He hung up after that. I didn't save the voicemail. The next day I met with an attorney. Changed my will. Removed them from everything. Updated my emergency contacts. Gave Ava's school the paperwork they'd need if anything ever happened to me. My best friend, not my parents, would take her. I changed all our locks again, not because I was scared but because I just wanted the symbolism to be real. This time there would be no halfway back in. No mailed bracelets. No late apologies. No surprise pop-ins at Christmas with store-bought cookies and fake smiles. They had years. They had chances. They had a child who looked up to them and waited at the window. And they let her down every single time. So I did the one thing they never expected. I erased them. And when Ava woke up the next morning, she didn't ask if they'd come late. She didn't mention them at all. She just ate leftover cupcakes for breakfast and said, that was the best party ever. And I believed her.